Let's see if, when we put three old stories together, we can create a tripod on which we can rest a realization about where we are right now. First, there's that story of Rashid. And Rashid had been with his Sufi master for 30 years. Every day he had gone to the house of learning, swept the courtyard, listened to the teachings, whirled and chanted, but never had he experienced that which he'd witnessed in others, falling down in ecstasy, in a unified moment, forever changed. But one day, when Rashid was returning to his home after the afternoon's gathering, he was pursued by 7 bandits wielding swords, obviously after his life. And he was driven to the edge of a cliff where he had no choice but to jump off the edge. As it was falling, it happened. That moment, he called out, "God, help me," with every atom of his being. And in that instant, a hand appeared. He recognized that hand. It was the hand of his Sufi master. He'd seen that hand every day for 30 years. He rested upon that hand as he was gently brought down safely to the bottom of the cliff. And he rushed back to the house of his teacher, thanking him, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. But please, won't you tell me why this experience has never happened before?" And his master said, "And why have you not called on God like this before?" And the second story is about Ado. And Ado had also been in the monastery for 30 years. For 30 years he's attended the meditations. He'd stirred the rice in the kitchen, swept the reception hall. But in all those years, he had never experienced enlightenment. He longed for it. He increased his efforts. He got up earlier than everyone to attend the meditation hall. He fasted. And then, in desperation, he went to his abbot and told him, "I have been here for 30 long years. I have practiced with all of my might, and still I am not enlightened." "Oh," said his master, "well, why don't you give it another week? Give it your best efforts. And if you don't succeed, you better kill yourself." So Ado endeavored with all his might, with all his being. He sat in Zazen in the meditation hall. He swept the kitchen, feeling that oneness with the broom. But still, enlightenment did not come. So in desperation, as he was instructed, with resolution, he climbed to the top of the monastery parapets and went to the edge, determined to end it. He put his leg over the edge of the parapet, and it happened. There it was, that moment. He dashed down the stairs, burst into the abbot's room. The abbot said, "Yes, yes, yes, I know, it's happened." And after that, of course, the necessity was for the abbot to be able to confirm this moment, this unity, this enlightenment, so-called. And then there's the final story of Murakami. Murakami had also been in the monastery for 3 long decades. He had practiced what his abbot had taught, that he should have faith. And he had that faith, that Satori was real. He was taught that he should have doubt. And he doubted that it would ever happen. And then tenacity, intrepidness, to continue with all his might. And this he did for those 3 long decades. He got up earlier than all the other monks to be attendants at the meditation halls. He followed the rituals, the austerities. And then one morning, he woke up in deep desolation. He did not get up to attend meditation. He did not get up to stir the rice and sweep the courtyard. His deep, deep state, even though he'd awoken at the hour that he'd awoken for the last 30 years, he put his head under the covers in an attempt to block it all out, but it wouldn't go away. The monks in the cloister whispered, "It's happening, it's happening." But it wasn't happening for Murakami. So he got up. He took his prayer beads and donned his robe and walked down the path that led to the gate of the monastery. He heard the monastery gate close behind him, and he set out, he knew not where. But his path took him into the city of Kyoto, monastery of which was on its outskirts. But it was an old city then, not inhabited so vastly as it is today. But his footsteps led him through the city where everyone was going about their business, and he thought, everyone's got a purpose, except no longer have I a purpose. But he found himself in that place that is called the Red Light District. And so, with determination, he thought, all of these years I have honed my mind to raise a sharp awareness. Now, I will throw myself into that which is said to bring the mind to debaseness, self-indulgence. And so he went to one of those houses where the red light shone outside the door, and taking the hand of the young maiden who presented herself, he was led up the stairs to the small room with its pallet beside the window. And he went about the act. But his razor-sharp mind and acuity and awareness was there in full bloom after all of these years of practices. It was there, this awareness. He was aware of his own gnarled fingernails as they gripped the shoulders of the young maiden. He was aware of the birds singing outside the window. Objectivity was total. Awareness was sharp. And then it happened. The explosion of losing himself, his mind gone in the thrustings that occurred naturally and spontaneously from the union taking place. Satori was his. He only had his beads to give as payment to the maiden, who accepted them reluctantly. And Murakami had nowhere else to go but back to the monastery, where he presented himself to the abbot. But the Satori was evident. And even though it was different from those who had presented themselves for confirmation before, those who'd been peeling their orange, or sitting on the toilet, or sweeping the floor, but there was no questioning the validity of Murakami's Satori. He was given the name Rishi Rosho, both honorifics, enlightened one and teacher. But he became known as Bobo Roshi. Roshi is great teacher, and Bobo is fuck, and that's what he did. He was given a little temple, which happened to be on the fringe of the red light district. He was a renowned teacher, and very fondly called Bobo Roshi, because he could often be seen making his way down the road into the little red light district of Kyoto. as was the custom with a number of monks at the time, he prepared his own epithet, the little patch in the monastery garden, which was designated for his bones, had erected upon it a little headstone, Bobo Roshi. So this is the tripod. What is enlightenment or Satori? Is it, as these three stories would have us understand, that moment of desperation to call out with every atom of our being, "Help me!" Nothing outside of it. Is it that moment of surrender when we put our foot over the parapet? Or is it orgasmic when our rational, logical, objective mind is lost? Enlightenment, Satori. But whatever our experience is of that, and we've all had it, how can we now recognize it as a permanent state in our lives now? What is it that we can recognize about that moment in our life, whichever way it presented itself, that is now a permanency, a permanent state of being for us? What is it about that experience that we can now recognize as being that which is unchanging in our life? We cannot go to some abbot who will give us confirmation of our enlightenment, go to a board of counselors who would tell us, yes, your enlightenment is valid, but we sure as hell can recognize it for ourselves, and we have to. What is it about your experience, in whatever form it took, that changed us forever, that we now recognize is always there, or here, whatever way you like to look at it? What is this enlightenment, this Satori state? Beyond Satchitananda, beyond existence, knowledge and bliss. What is it? Claim it. Recognize it. And faith and doubt and tenacity, perseverance are no longer needed. It's effortless. Because it's always here.